All right, go ahead.
Let's start. So thank you all for coming to this startup about digital marketing. Thank you for accepting to come and share your experiences in this field. Thanks to Sébastien for being the main actor in the organization of this panel. We are really grateful to you for that. So we'll cover a few topics, including customers acquisition, work in cooperation with big companies, also why did you create a startup, and finally we'll try to reach some international dimension, hopefully. And then we'll have a Q&A session so that you guys in the audience have a chance to ask your own questions. About the audience, we are studying marketing and digital media in Spain, and we came here for a trip in San Francisco to get to know the trends and learn from inspiring people here in the Silicon Valley. You're part of those people, so thanks again.
Thank you.
So first of all, I'll ask you to introduce yourself, to explain what led you to create your current startup, and let us know what this startup is about. So please.
Hello, my name is Henry. I'm the founder of Catch Talk TV. Catch Talk TV is a video platform that hosts video content from conferences and events. So I think Netflix meets TED Talks would be the best way to describe it. These kind of videos that get captured at panel discussions and conferences such as that, we now have a destination to go and find that video content for business professionals. And the second part of your question was what led me to do that, or what inspired me to do that? Yes. I really saw a big problem. I love going to conferences. I always love going to listen to panel debates and experts and hear what they're saying. But I found the problem was I was never able to find this content very easily. Sure, there was YouTube, but I get distracted by the Justin Bieber and the dancing cat videos. So I wanted to create a platform just for the business professional to be able to go and find content relating to their industry.
My name is Charles Vickery, and I'm just curious, are any of you programmers or developers? Okay. The greatest thing about kind of the world that we live in right now is that you can teach yourself how to code. And if there's anything that you kind of get from me tonight, it is please teach yourself how to program. So I'm co-creator and community manager of a company called SourceGraph. And basically, if you want to think about it in terms of the fact that it's kind of like Google code search for programmers. And Google's really, really good at looking for words and figuring out what you're asking it. But if you type in a piece of code, it really doesn't kind of know what you're looking for. So what we do is we give access to open source repositories as well as all the work that's on the open web. And so all you need to do is just put in a given function, and we'll show you every single time it's ever used, as well as how many people have used it, and different usage examples. So why we created it is basically that no one has created something like this in the public domain. Google right now has a couple of different tools that are somewhat similar, but we basically wanted to bring the tools that companies like Microsoft and Facebook and Google use for their dev teams to the rest of the world. So,
my name is Hassan Mirjan, and I go back many years of entrepreneurship since I was 20. I run two companies basically. I founded two companies right now. One of them is called SpherePad, and the other one called SphereMail. And they kind of integrate together. So the way it started out is I started SpherePad, which is a co-working space for entrepreneurs or startups who want to come and work out of the space, and build SphereMail on the side of it. Now, the question is, how did this all started? Is I just love building businesses, whether it's co-working, whether it's a hot dog stand. It doesn't really matter. It's just about really running a business.
Okay, thanks. Maybe you could tell us at what stage of your startup you are right now. How old is your startup, and do you have already customers?
So I launched Catch Talk TV a little over a year ago. We're currently chasing funding at the moment, so very early phase, still in that bootstrap phase as we call it. In terms of customers, yes, we do.
We have seed funding from Lightspeed Ventures, and SourceGraph is probably about, I don't know, a year and a half old, maybe? a little less than that. And we currently have early beta customers.
In my case, it's all completely bootstrap. No VCs, no seed funding, and both businesses are profitable. How do we acquire customers? By the way, the co-working spaces, both of them are completely full. And Spearmail is a subscription-based model business, so it's profitable as well, and it's bootstrap.
Okay, and so how do you acquire these customers?
How do we get these customers? This kind of the business model is very interesting. We kind of feed off of Spearmail is a mail system. We digitize paper mail, just like the company that it was, Outbox. And what we do, it's a white label product, sits on the co-working spaces website. So the way we get customers is they actually organically market to get customers. So what happens, we take that customer and then pay back the space of what we have acquired. So it's basically, the way it works is a customer comes in and signs up for the space, we handle all the payment gateway, the processor, and the notification system. And then it's a revenue share model.
Okay, and how do you get him to know your service?
It's through their marketing, through social media. Basically, it's all organic. We did not, even on marketing, we did not really spend a whole lot of money on marketing. So it's through other co-working spaces which are partners. They do organically the marketing for us without them knowing that they're doing it, because the actual link at the button says subscribe and redirects them to our
So part of the strategy in getting our first customers has always been creating something that's free and easy to use for anybody. So basically, if you go to sourcegraph.com, there is a fully functional site available to any programmer to use across all of the open source content that's available on the web. And so basically what we do is we let people use the product for free for their own personal projects. They realize the value of it, and then there's a little button that says get SourceGraph for my company. And then that basically sends an email to me, and then I give them a call. So it's basically starting off with like a premium model that allows infinite kind of ownership of the product up until a certain point.
And how did you get those first users to know this free tool?
Basically, the programming community is very active on forums, and so we just continue to kind of put the word out there. We went on a website called Hacker News that is run by a company called Y Combinator here, and we basically just said like, hey, we're building this really cool thing, and we'd love to get your feedback on it. And from that just kind of started a very, very small trickle that's, I think, improved our user count by about 100 times over the last year.
Okay, and do you do some advertising directly to businesses, or do you only count on these first users?
All of our growth has been completely organic, and we do no kind of traditional advertising.
Thank you.
My case, I think, is a little bit different from the other two panelists. Before we launched, we needed to obviously get conference producers to host their video content on CatchTalk TV. And when you don't have anything, it's very hard to try and sell that idea. So getting the first customer was probably the hardest thing to do. But the way we did that was just literally just picking up the phone, cold calling the hell out, actually irritating a lot of conference companies, saying, look, you've got video content, give it to us, let us launch it. So when we launched, we managed to have, I think it was about 75 videos in total, and now we're up to, I think, just over 7,000 videos. So it's very easy. Once the first one was the hardest, once we got the first one through the door, then you're able to say that they've done it, why you should be doing it as well. And when you get 2, it's easy to get 3, and then 6, and then 9, and then some of the usage will go up as well. So that was very much the hardest part to get the first one.
To convince this first one, maybe did you propose him to make him pay less, or what was the strategy to get the first one, very important one?
To host content on CatchTalk TV, it costs absolutely nothing. So it was that made it also part of why we also tweaked the business model and made it that way, so it was easier to sell. But then there's still very much no one wants to be the first to do anything. So what we'd have to do is, particularly to everyone here, if you're thinking about starting up a business, is really play on the fact that you're an early phase startup and you're a young person and you're looking for a break. I remember the first person I managed to get on board, who was this sort of mid-40s, this executive, and I said, look, when you were my age, you were trying to start things up as well. Is there any way you could just come your break and just help me put some content on here to help us get going? And he actually sort of stopped all of his objections and said, right, fine, I'll do it for you. So that was the easiest probably way looking back on it now, is just to play on the youth and the naivety, and also as well the fact that you were a startup, and you'd be surprised how much people want to help you.
And if I could add something on that, I think there's something really important about, like, if you start with something that's authentic and you're actually asking for someone's help on something, I think you'll generally find that most people want to help other people. I think if you go into the first meeting and you're trying to truly sell something to somebody, then automatically, I mean, you've had this, like if somebody gives you a call and you're at lunch or something, you're like, hello, and they're like, hi, I'd like you to buy this thing. Like, you don't want to talk to them at all, right? But if you are able to find somebody at that moment in time when they're maybe have a little bit of time just to talk to you, and if they can actually believe in your vision and see what you're trying to do, then they will go to incredible lengths to try and support you and be a part of that mission.
Another great term to add to that as well is beta user. Say, I'd like you to pilot this with me and let me be the first to market. And when this goes really big, I always remember you as the first person as well. Places wherever you go, as well, and it certainly comes along.
What also helps is giving a trial. For example, if you have a subscription-based business model, give them a month free, but make sure to charge those customers. Like any business you start, you have to think about the business model right from the start before even building the business. Because once you start going without knowing the business model, you're going to get sucked into developing, oh, I want to make this, I want to make that, and by the end of the day, you end up running out of money and not able to charge anyone. So just offer a month free or 2 weeks free, and then, but make sure to charge right after. Giving them discount is fine, but make that discount on a certain limit and cut that. Don't continue. The other thing is I do want to mention is customization. So if you do want to build a business, do not customize for one separate customer because you think that separate customer, so you want to give them that kind of a different model than the rest, because you're going to end up in a big problem once you grow. You have to always make sure when you develop a product, keep in mind that this guy doesn't want that stuff. So these things have to keep in mind.
Okay, so you wouldn't put the focus too much on one customer.
Never do that. Never do. Once you do that, you go out of business very soon, because once they stop, pull the plug, you go out of business. So I would go and follow 5,000 or 10,000 customers rather than getting one big customer. Because if you have 500 customers, 100 of them decide to cancel, you still have 400.
Okay.
But if you have one big customer, he's paying you a lot of money, which is, they're going to tell you to do this, you're going to do it. But if they decide they don't want you, they pull the plug, you go out of business. So you don't have really that sustainable market, I guess.
So the apparent minimum risk of this big customer isn't enough to.
I'm sorry?
The apparent minimum risk provided by this big customer who spends a lot isn't enough to focus
No,
on
because
him.
one is they're going to ask you for a lot of things that you may not be able to do that because you're still trying to build your business. I would go after the big customers later on, sure. Once you have built that base of many little users. Just think about wholesale and retail. You can have one customer at a high price, or do you want 300 customers at a much lower price, but you have volume and you're creating that turnover really quickly, and the word gets out even faster. So wholesale is always better than retail because it's less headache. One, you don't have to really cater to every single one. You have this whole pool of people, and this is what we have. This is where you take it, so they start absorbing.
Yet, would you consider such a big company as a goal to?
Absolutely. In the future, definitely, when you get big enough where you can afford that to do that, sure, yeah, go after the big ones, but don't start too early. You will run into a problem of high expense, and I tell you, I am one of them. Is when I was trying to bring one, I always thought, okay, they want this and they want that. So what can we do to do that? It's going to cost. If you have the money, sure, go for it. But like I said, you go in there, they pay you a lot of money, you better answer whatever they ask you to do. So just keep that.
So the main problem would be the resources to answer the needs of this big company.
One. Two, you're going to start ending up customizing only for that customer. And if you want to distribute that product, especially if you have an online internet, online website that when you push a change, all the change, everyone gets it. Now you have to always, as I go back again, you keep in mind that you don't make that change would not affect that customer. And that's where the cost is going to be. And it always been this way. Back 15 years ago during the .com, I remember I was working for that company, they had that same problem. So keep that in mind.
And did you get the chance, you guys, to work with big companies? Did it prove to be different paces as you are in startups?
We did not. No, we did not take that. We now kept on going as end users, smaller companies, but now we're starting to get bigger and bigger slowly, which we can afford it and we can say no. You can afford to say no. In the beginning, you won't be able to say no because the money is good. It's really, you see that coming. Why won't you take it?
Is it the same for you?
I think there's an element, and exactly as you were saying, is don't let the tail wag the dog. Be very true to your principles. This is what we want to do. This is what we want to achieve. Don't go chasing after opportunities that you may think will be short wins because of the lifestyle they will simply be very different. But your other question about is it going out to bigger companies in a way?
Yes.
I mean, it's on a case-by-case basis, but with us in particular as well is once we found we got a number of small companies where we have to say, well, these are these smaller guys. This is what they're doing. They're being very innovative. Why aren't you doing this big company? And then when you get the big company on board because they want to be perceived as innovative, you can then go and get the other bigger companies as well. So you say, well, the innovative small companies and one big company are doing it. Why are you not doing it as well? And you can really use that. So it's just a step-by-step process.
About big companies, why don't you work in big companies? Why did you create a startup? Why did you get this energy? Where did you find your idea? Why are you an entrepreneur in the end?
It's a lot of questions in one there.
Why are you an entrepreneur?
Why? It's because I enjoy the challenge. I think someone asked me this once, and I said in one word, I said freedom, which is kind of a bit of an irony, but freedom in the sense of I can be free to make my own decisions in terms of, I can work late and work weekends or take an afternoon off if I want. But the irony is I'm sort of chained and bound, particularly with devices, to always thinking, answering emails. But it's always just been my passion to build something that I'm proud of and want to create something that is engaging and exciting and something that I can be really passionate about. And I find that would be difficult to work for someone else's company or build someone else's vision rather than my own.
Yeah. I guess to add to that, it's really about building something that didn't exist before. I think, it's always answered with the same kind of question of like, well, why did you go down that road? Why did you want to explore? Why did you want to adventure? Like, why are you guys in business school in San Francisco? Like, Spain is very far away, but you are curious, right? And like, you want to answer these questions for yourself. And like, to your point about freedom, yeah, I mean, like, I don't even know how many hours we work at this point, but I don't think it really matters because like we're doing something that we really care a lot about, and ultimately we are trying to make people's lives easier. We're trying to make, basically like the manual tasks that programmers have to do every single day that absolutely makes them want to go crazy and make that automated and simplified. And I guess it's just like seeing all the wonderful things in the world and then trying to do something with that. So I don't know, just give it a shot. Like, why not? I guess that's really the answer. It's like, why not? Because you can always go to a big company. They're always going to be around. But if you have an idea, like, go for it.
The reality, to just add on to that point that you just added on to my point, is that if you try and start something and it fails, you're in a much better position than if you just went and got a job and spent the same time doing that job. Because you go to an interview afterwards or somewhere else and that potential employer or someone says, what have you been doing for the last 12, 18 months? Well, I tried to start this business. Okay, it didn't work. What did you learn from that? And that level of experience will be, it's just invaluable. It really is. And so, in my opinion, you have nothing to lose. You really do.
Yeah, I think the cool thing is when you create a product or a service that you see people actually using what you created. Like people are using it, and you see people really. You're, as you mentioned, you're helping those people that are using whatever you created. This is one. I think what is also important is it's important also to work for a little bit of time working for other companies just to learn the management style and how to manage people, how to organize things, that also helps. So it's not only taking that route. I may disagree a little bit on that one because I went on both spaces. At age 20, I started my own business, then went back into corporate, and then got out again. The one thing that is, it's very, very hard. I mean, if you want to go on your own, if you have the stomach for it, sure, go for it. It's fun, but it's hard. You got to be dedicated. Find something that you really enjoy and then just go for it.
So building your own startup needs a lot of personal investment, a lot of time. Do you have a goal for your startup? Do you envision being bought, for instance, grow tremendously? What is your vision for your startup?
I think, yeah, of course. I mean, we all have these grand dreams of floating off the stock exchange, or suddenly Google coming in and acquiring you, and on the cover of TechCrunch and all these kind of things. It's wonderful. I think those are the longer term dreams. I think it's more important to get really focused and keep the short term goals. I'd like to hit 1,000 users. I'd like to hit 10,000 users. I'd like to hit $1 million in revenue or anything like that. Get really focused, and then you can start to dream big.
I would say 10,000 paid users.
Well,
yes. Paid users, not free users.
Of course, that's how it is. But just to sort of go back to another part of your question as well, as sort of what does it take, and you're saying about the stomach as well. I think the hardest thing, in particular when you're running a startup or sort of in your own business, is it can be very, very lonely at times because you're your own boss. You've got to make all the decisions. You're probably making the wrong decisions a lot of the time. The hardest thing that you have to do is fight with yourself to keep going and continue to get going. So you were mentioning as well about making something that you do that you enjoy and be passionate about, because you'll see around you, you'll see your friends' lives upgrading, they'll be getting new jobs, buying houses, going on holidays, having babies, getting engaged, all of this, and you're still sort of trying to sort of build this sort of early phase sort of product or service or whatever it is that you're trying to build. And that's the hardest thing. Like you could say, well, I can just stop this now and just go and get a job and great, everything's going to be easy. So that's the real hardest thing in my opinion, is that fight with yourself and to keep asking yourself, do I really believe in what I'm doing? How passionate am I? Do I have this talent to keep going and doing this? But that's something that again is don't do anything half-assed that you don't believe.
Yeah. I guess goals, had anybody ever heard of SourceGraph when I walked in? No, right? Like that's what I want to change. And ultimately, when you're doing a startup, like you have to say no to a lot of stuff before you can start saying yes to other things. So I don't know. I was like looking at all the things that I want to do, and really, when it comes down to it, I want to be at a place where I can like focus on the things that I've been thinking about for the past couple years. So I guess it's being able to move forward always, so that you can be able to do the things that you want to do.
So what's our vision in our company? Now, since we're in a place where we're profitable, so now we're in a sticky situation. Do I just continue, let it just go and roll, and I don't do anything, and I'm making money? Or do I want to sell it? Then if I sell it, that means I don't want to sit around and do nothing. I have to start something else. So that's where the situation is. And even, every time and then I go back and forth. Should I raise more funding? But the more skin in the game you have, the more you shy away from taking money from investors. And then that's why I say always, think about the business model right away and start making your first dollar. By the way, the first time you build a company, when you have somebody pays you even the first dollar, that means you have something valuable to sell, and just continue to build on that. And ideas will pop up. And if you're going to think about writing a business plan, and I'm going to go on this topic a little bit, don't waste your time on that one. Just start it. Just start it. Don't waste time. Start it. Build something and slap a price. See what happens.
Okay. And one of the goals of a startup remains to grow at the beginning. And the more you grow, the farther you get from the service or the product you provide. Aren't you afraid of getting so far that in the end you stop doing what you like? You mentioned you want to provide the coders with this solution that makes their lives easier. If you get so far that you don't even touch the service or the product, will you sell your company? What will you do?
I mean, honestly, 10 years ago, everybody was afraid of becoming Microsoft, and then Google happened. So I don't think that growth inherently pulls away from the original mission. But I think it's always good to remind yourself like why you're doing what you're doing. You know, I'm a weirdo and I have a bunch of things all over my room that remind me this. You know, one of the things is I always look at is, you know, if you put fences around people, you get sheep. So like it's these like little things that when you're building a company, you hope to be able to scale those values along with the growth itself. So hopefully that doesn't happen, right? You know, like I don't know. If that does happen, just like tell me I'm an asshole and like I'll deserve it.
Well, I think if you're hands-on, I don't think your company is going to grow. When you said you're hands-on and you step away from it, then I don't think you really have a business that you want to grow. I mean, that's the purpose of it. You start a business, you want to pull back as fast as possible and leverage other people. Leverage is the only way for your company to grow. Otherwise, you're going to just continue doing what you're doing. Might as well just go be a freelancer, which is fine, nothing wrong with that. But there is no room for you to grow. You know, when are you going to go on vacation if you want to go on vacation, right?
Yeah, I mean, you're exactly right. I mean, the best analogy, I think, is always sort of like a musician, right? If you put it in musical terms, right? If you're, let's say, David Bowie, you know, David Bowie once upon a time was learning how to play the piano and learning how to play the guitar, and he started recording music, and then he started performing, and then he got into production, and now he's probably got a record label in a way. David Bowie doesn't go running around, you know, sort of playing much piano sort of on for other people. He does it for the passion, but that's what you do as you learn, as you quite rightly say, is leverage other people, but also use your experience and move up a lot and promote yourself, put other people underneath you and show them how to do it, and then trust them, and then you can move up. And that's sort of the reality. And it's what I've really learned recently is the ability to. It's not about working as hard as you can. Obviously, you work hard and you work as hard as you can, but it's about getting as much done in as little amount of time as possible. Because the reality is we only have X amount of hours, minutes, and seconds on this earth while we're alive, so you've got to utilize them effectively. So delegation is the key to success in that sense. Leveraging other people.
Yeah, let me add this. The hardest thing about starting a business is letting go. You have to let go. Like this, the first thing you decide is, as I said, the business model 1, 2, let go. Trust other people, let go, and that's hard to do. But if you train yourself and force yourself, then you will have a really good potential for you to really have a viable business that can grow to multi-million. And why do you want to sell it anyway? Like I've always, think about it. I said, yeah, okay, if someone comes in and drops, $50, $100 million, I may think about it. I wouldn't say no because I'm going to do something else. Yeah.
And when you say being able to let go, did it happen to you that your partners, employees modified your first idea, yours idea?
Trust me, I mean, when I started SpherePad, I started by myself, running the whole thing by myself. But I always wanted to hire, at least the first one, and actually it was all organic. So whatever money I make, I put it back in the business. The first thing, the money I spent when I had extra is on an employee, to add someone to the team. Once I did that, the company took off. And I trusted that person, and basically, she's our community manager, and she did a tremendous job. Like, I wouldn't be able to do what she's doing right now. And that's what I'm saying, is leverage and trust. I mean, that's really important. It's hard, but it can be done.
We talked about growth. Would you consider growing internationally? As we are here in the Silicon Valley, so it's maybe the best place for digital startups to begin. Do you consider growing outside of the US?
I think that it depends on the type of business, but particularly in this digital age, you're already international. I mean, I look at National TV, you look at the analytics, and I've got viewers and users from everywhere from Indonesia to Africa to India to Russia. It's already there. So in terms of growing internationally, you kind of, with the internet, you are. Obviously, dependent on the model and the offering and the service that you do. But I mean, particularly within the US, it's always, obviously, maybe you can tell from my accent, I'm from England, and moving over to the States, and it's, a lot of people compare Europe and the US, similar in terms of the population, economies, but there's a fundamental difference in the fact that the US is one language, one currency, all the way the same through. Whereas if you go to Europe, you've got multiple different languages, different cultural differences, different currencies, different attitudes. So if depending on that business, I think it would be very important if you are US focused, dominate the US and then look to go abroad because there's so much opportunity here.
Did you personally move from the UK to the US to start your business?
That was one of the main reasons. I started it already, but wanted it over here as well. And it's just the opportunity and excitement. And, again, as I say, you've only got so many minutes and seconds left on this planet, so enjoy it, right? So, yeah.
About you internationally?
Well, I mean, I would say it certainly helps that we're in San Francisco, where you do have a very strong developer programming community. But you know, the amount of growth we've seen, particularly in China and Korea, has been absolutely amazing. And you know, to your point, like every company right now is a technology company, and every company is an international company. I think actually where it gets a little hard right now is we're actually trying to hire international people, and the U.S. makes this really difficult. You know, personally, I've seen some amazing startups coming out of Berlin right now, and that's a place that I've been trying to keep in touch with. Also, one of the #1 open source projects is called Docker, and it's created by a large kind of French cohort. So I think we're seeing companies coming up from everywhere, and talent is everywhere.
Yeah, Sphere Mail is we're international. We have a couple locations in France and UK, and one in Australia. The challenge was the currency, and we're still having a problem with it. But we decided let's just try it and see what happens. We haven't really had paid customers yet internationally, but it's ready. It's available for customers to sign up, and then we will find the problems and we fix the problems as we go. So going back to startups, and I just love that topic, is that if you want to build a little startup, a little internet company, don't make it perfect. Just build the minimum thing and then push it out. It's okay. I mean, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter. People will forget all the problems that your little website have as you continue to develop.
So you say the cultural differences aren't a problem in the end?
The culture as far as between, the only challenge would be localization, which is language barrier, as you have mentioned. We said, okay, you know what, we're just going to do English right now. If they're going to complain, and if they complain louder, as it gets louder, then we'll change it. But at the time, it's English. That's how it is. So yes, it's challenging. That's the challenging part. So the UK and Australia and New Zealand would be easy. Other countries would be a little challenging.
Okay, because us in the audience here are international students studying in Spain, coming from abroad. So you're saying that here in Silicon Valley, an international profile is rather minimum requisite. In the end, everyone is international.
I think the world is so accessible now, and everyone's got different passports or sort of parents from different backgrounds and different cultures in a way. I think that it's not even really such a big issue so much anymore.
Yeah, and I can add to that, if you're international and speak different languages, it's actually a benefit. And because it's so easy now, you build a company, you need to be available in different countries. So a lot of companies now looking for, someone speaks Spanish, French, German, whatever, and that helps. With localizations like us, we may need that. So yes.
Do you recruit?
Not at the time, yeah, but definitely in the future, but absolutely, yeah.
Always looking for interns, though.
Paid interns.
Sure. So thank you. I think we covered a few topics. So the customers acquisition, the cooperation with big companies, why did you create a startup, the international aspect. So now I propose my dear audience to ask maybe some questions. Thanks, Marina. And before all, every question, we have two shirts here because we get sponsorized for the two best askers. Oh yeah.
Two best questions get the shirt.
Two best questions. So the jury is the panel for the best questions. Marina?
So I wanted to ask you, each of you, if you had your recipe for success and you only had 3 ingredients, what would those be?
That's a good one.
Curiosity. curiosity, gumption.
Curiosity, sorry?
Curiosity, gumption.
Yes.
Let's go.
Gumption is like why you wake up every single morning and want to do something. It's like it's that thing that like when you find yourself in the middle of something, you're like, why am I doing this? And then there's an answer. That's gumption, because you're gonna need it. Because there are gonna be long nights. Like you said, it's lonely, right? Like, and the third thing is empathy. I think being able to like take a step back. And like a lot of being in a startup is personal and like you're going through shit, but like so is everybody else. And being able to connect and appreciate and help each other would be the three things.
I think it's ambition, one, definitely loving what you do, and not to be afraid to fail. I mean, just think about it, oh, okay, so what? I'm gonna fail. The more you think about it this way backwards, then you won't. So this is how I treat it.
On top of all of those, the three things I'd say is passion, passion, passion. If you don't enjoy what you're doing, stop doing it and go and find something you enjoy.
Thank you.
So my question is more about what you talked about the business model, you know. As you said, you have to start, you have to go ahead, and your business model keep changing. When do you know that you have the right business model, the right target, the right client, and stop changing?
The business model.
Stop doing like that.
I'm sorry, that question to me.
No, to everyone.
Oh, I'm sorry.
But yeah, generally I'd say when you see that, right? When you see that curve.
The business model, the initial business model, as long as you, I think that the most successful business model out of all business models I've seen is subscription-based business. That's the perfect deal because the customer acquisition, it gets cheaper as time go by. And then you can add to that, but it will never end. Like you don't want to stop that because you already figured out the base and then you can build on the base. I think you should always keep changing, it's fine. There's nothing wrong with that.
Yeah, to add on that, you know, like in the Valley, we call it the pivot, which is basically I started off to do something. Sometimes I got money, and then I realized like that was the worst thing I could have done. A couple of examples. So Twitter used to be a podcasting company when it first started. Slack, which is the like $1 billion valuation, is the fastest growing company like in the Valley right now, and they started off making a video game. So like, I think business models can always change as well as like the core product. And a lot of times while you're building something, something else comes out, and it's like,
Absolutely.
you know what? You just have to abandon what your dreams were, and you just run with that. And sometimes you do it again, but don't be afraid to change. That's all I would say.
It's all about your gut then. You have just to go there and
The other thing I'd like to add to your point, you made a great point about don't write a business plan out. The amount of times I've gone and spoken with potential investors and they say, so give me your business plan, and you like give them a page and they're like, well, what is this? It's like, I sometimes expecting like, ultimately an encyclopedia of your marketing strategy, your financial strategy, and it's a waste of time in my opinion. There's a really, really good book called Business Model Generation, which does the business model canvas. 9 simple blocks and questions that need to be answered, which essentially just articulate your business model very, very simply. It takes about 2 hours to go through and put together, and then from there you'll be able to get a better view of how it is. So don't waste your time with strategies, business plans. It's quite like you said, just get to market as quickly as possible. And there's a quoting Reid Hoffman, the guy who started LinkedIn. He said very, very famously that if you launch and you're not embarrassed by your product, you've launched too late. So launch it, even if it's ugly, even if it's terrible, just get it out there and get people using it and get those feedback there.
I will be very honest, I started many businesses and I've never, not even once, wrote a business plan. I just hate it. Now if I go back, okay, I have a track record of 3 years of a company running, I can write a business plan, sure, but I still hate it. So if I want to raise, that's why I probably don't raise money, because they want to see this and I don't want to, I can explain it, but I'm not going to write it.
The other question as well is your business like your business plan would have been 3 years when you started?
Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
but you still need direction, not to go something,
The direction is, you have an idea, go with it. That's all it takes. That's all it takes. Go with it, do it. If it doesn't work, go change it. I started many businesses, from chicken farming to having a store like this to I started a website back in 2009, failed miserably, lost a lot of money, but I didn't lose 100% because I still have the source code. I can use the source code to do something else. So it doesn't mean all success, but running a business is an absolute ridiculous waste of time, especially if you don't really have a business.
Just be careful because these are business students.
I'm sorry, I mean, no offense to everyone. I mean,
Let's say if you need money and the bank, for instance, or investors ask for this business plan, is it a trend now to avoid these business plans?
It's not a trend to avoid it. Generally, particularly in the Valley, I've noticed it's a deck. So you need 10, 15 slides max. Just sell me the idea and the vision. And all of these people, these professional investors, they know the market. They've seen all the business models before as well. So it's kind of a combination of the stars aligning. Do you have an interesting, innovative idea? Is your approach unique and protectable? And also, who's the team? Those are the main things. And you can get those in a slide deck, not a 15-page document of, SOSTAC and all these kind of crazy other things.
Is this a pro of the Silicon Valley, by the way? In other places of the world, maybe it's not so easy?
I found coming from England, the attitude was very much behind it. Yeah, give me a business plan, and it's just, Mike, typing away, punching in ideas and marketing strategies, and it's sitting in my heart or somewhere else.
Okay, Karim.
Do you believe in crowdfunding platforms?
Yeah, very much so. I know that in the US they're just beginning to take off here. There is also Kickstarter and those kind of things. The crowdsourcing, open sourcing, these are all real trends, so absolutely very much. And again, if you've got an idea, as the panel's been saying, just put it out there, see what happens. You've got nothing to lose. Absolutely.
Gloria?
If you could go back to your 25-year-old self, what advice would you give yourself?
Don't care about what people think. I can't, at 25, it was that's all I cared about. I graduated from business school and was terrified about what kind of path I was going to take, and worked in finance and a bunch of different shit. And it doesn't matter at all. You guys are just starting off, and don't worry about what everybody else thinks.
Just to add to that as well, don't be afraid to fail. And if you are going to fail, crash and burn horribly.
Yeah.
Because you will
leave a scar.
Yeah. It's because it's not the end of the world. Tomorrow is another day. There's always going to be other opportunities. So don't be afraid to fail. And don't be afraid to try new stuff and be innovative. And don't listen to too many people. Be very steadfast in your decisions.
I'm sorry.
Words of wisdom on 25-year-old self.
Oh, 25-year-old self. Yeah, the time was again. I was running a business and I wasn't even knowing what I'm doing, but I just kept on. And I had 2 employees working for me, and I was the worst manager ever at the time. So I learned a lot from it. My say is that just go with it. Just go with it.
So about what you said, Charles, before, you have to learn about coding, We are all from different backgrounds. We are doing a marketing master with the overview of the digital, but we are no specialist in any coding thing.
Yeah.
So do you think that we have any use for this kind of company? Do you need people like us?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, so I have an MBA. I'm the only member of my team, that didn't study computer science. And I think, to respond to one of the previous questions, curiosity, figuring out how things work really helps, especially in a startup where you need people to just be able to execute on a lot of different things. So for us, we really care about coding. I think programming allows you to build things, and that means you're able to build your ideas, right? So you don't have to go out and you don't have to hire a very expensive developer. You can just make a proof of concept. You can teach yourself how to design. I mean, YouTube is the best place for this. You just go and just watch tutorial videos. Or if you see a project that you really, really like email the person and say how did you learn how to do this? And always be chasing that, because you guys have an understanding of how business works, which is huge. You understand how marketing works. You understand how communication can empower people to do different things. So it's not that your skills aren't useful. It's just that if you are able to teach yourself how to do something like programming or coding or design, then you can actually do so much more with those skills than you would do if you'd be working in a big company or something like that. So,
just to add to that as well, don't fear the fact that if you're not technically focused, don't feel redundant in any way, because you always need someone to code and someone to sell. Those are the two fundamental core things in that sense. Obviously there's other things, community, communication, all this kind of thing, but those are the core sort of, the seesaw of it, building and selling it. So either you do one or the other, or if you're really talented you can do both, but generally it's one or the other. So don't stress, there's always going to be someone around the corner who can do the coding for you. That's the point.
Daniel, so you during the first year maybe, or 6 months depending on the company, you don't really make any money.
yeah.
So you have to have quite a large amount of savings or backup money behind you when you start a startup, because otherwise, if you're running out of money, you can't get any more. Would it like make you stop or something like that?
Use that as motivation.
Yeah.
And there's a great saying, a great word that I use a lot, hustle. So for example, I don't buy alcohol. Sebastian very kindly has just bought me a beer.
Yeah.
I think there's always a way. Where there's a will, there's a way, as the saying goes. So, in terms of, yes, you need savings, but also, again, this comes down to the question of passion, and do you believe in what you're doing, and then the sacrifices that you have to make. So, okay, sure, as I mentioned before, your friends around you, they're going out to parties, they're doing all of this. I believe in this so much that I can sacrifice that for 6 months, a year, 18 months, because I know in the long run it'll pay off. And that comes to how much you believe in what you're doing. And if it gets to the stage where this isn't worth it, then you know it's not right for you.
And I would say, like, if you're building a startup just to make money, then like you've already lost. Because it will always look like a very foolish idea to most people. I think, learning how to live incredibly frugally is an incredible lesson. You'll learn a lot about yourself. Exactly, when you put restraints around yourself, you understand like how much you can really flex those restraints. And it's possible. Like here in San Francisco, it's one of the most expensive cities in the world, and you still have people who are finding ways to make it work. They didn't come here with a lot, and they're able to find the little shortcuts that pay off instead of just trying to spin their way through it.
I come from a different background. I think my answer to you would be, it's good to get a job. It's not bad. Actually, you learn a lot about corporate, you learn about management, you learn how to manage people and be managed, and at the same time, start the business in the background. Make a goal, like make a plan, let's say, in 3 years I'm going to quit, and you have to make sure you quit. But within that time, you're saving money and using that money to spend it on your startup. So that's a good option actually, because you're still at a young age. I mean, you can always, if it doesn't work, you still have. If you're 25, you're 29, so what? 28, I'll start again. So you have a lot of, look at me. I mean, I started this business back 4 years ago, and it's profitable now. So why not just go? And actually, there are two ways from it. It's learning from corporate and learning from the actual business itself. So you know how to operate it, and you have a backup. But make sure to quit after, not just because you get sucked in. I'm telling you, this is the danger of working for big companies, because they're going to pay you so well that it's so good for you to stay. Don't. Just quit. And if you don't quit, I'll tell them that you just badmouth that company, so they'll fire you.
I quit my job and worked for Lyft and Uber for 10 months before joining Surfscraft, just to make it work. So also just finding little jobs that you can kind of have control over your time will really help. Which those are big here in San Francisco. I don't know what it's like in Spain, but if you can find something where you can just kind of contract out, that's the best setup.
Maybe I'll ask a question. You said you have to take the shot and be ready to experience failure. Do you remember your first failure, and how hard was it? Did you?
And how did you overcome confidence?
Yeah, I mean, the first failure, I remember my first business that I started, great business model on paper. Yeah, how can this not work? And then you realized it didn't scale so well. So you're like, this isn't going to work so well. whatever, you stop, turn off the slides, move on to the next project, and then you learn from that. And the only way you really learn from those life experiences is by making mistakes. You hear about these, Mark Zuckerbergs of the world who are billionaires by the age of 27. Those guys are complete, absolute freaks.
Yeah.
And if it does happen, good, you can do that, but there needs to be an element of realism to this degree. You hear all these stories about all these famous entrepreneurs who tried to go and make it big, gone bust, ended up sleeping on their friends' couches or living back in their mother at the age of 35. These things happen, and you learn from your mistakes. And the only really real way you learn is through making mistakes. That's what I mentioned before. If you're going to crash and burn horribly, because you'll learn from there.
I guess when I was just graduating from college, I was really excited to go work in finance, make a lot of money, and start paying off that college debt. And then the company went under like 2 weeks before I was supposed to start. So I had nothing. So I literally sold everything I owned, and I bought a bicycle, and I rode my bicycle from Los Angeles to New York over 96 days because I didn't have another choice. I had to do something extreme in order to find out what I really wanted to do. So I'm also a big fan of if life just isn't working out, just go somewhere else. Just try it out. And I got really lucky and met some unbelievable people across the U.S. And ended up getting a job back here in the Bay Area once I got to New York. So yeah, but again, it's freak stories, right? I don't know.
Yeah. So cold turkey. Woke up one morning and said, I'm done. I'm not going to be working for anybody anymore. I'm going to quit. I go and I just that morning circled the office for until 5, from 9 a.m. till 5 p.m. trying to resign. The money was so good for me to resign was hard, and that's what I mentioned earlier. So I did it. And they asked me, they said, oh, that's so cool. So where are you going? I don't know. What are you going to do? I have no idea. And then people started envying, they were telling me, I wish I could be like you. I had some money saved and all that for working for this company, but I really literally decided that I'm done, it's over, I really want to go on my own. So I did, and I started that company, which I said back in, about 6-7 years ago, and it didn't work, it failed, it really failed. And I ended up to a point where okay, what am I going to do next? I definitely don't want to go back to corporate, which I tried. I said, okay, let me find a job just to convince myself that I am looking for a job, which I made it very hard for them to hire me. See, yeah, I'm trying to convince them, okay, I tried, it didn't work. So I went back and started the next thing and decided to move to a different city just to change all of my mindset, and it worked. So yeah, I mean, failures, it's if you have the guts and you really believe in the future and what you want to do.
Failure is okay in the end.
Failure is okay, but I think you would learn more from if you are successful. I think so, because you just build on it. You fail, but how do you know that the past failure you're gonna correct what you've done in the past parts of it, but it's easier to be even more successful.
Maybe there's a difference with working in a big company where failure is maybe seen as something bad.
Of course, you can't make mistakes. You're not supposed to. You're strict, and you wear the blinders literally to do exactly what they tell you. How are you going to learn? Running one business and starting your a business 1 year, you would learn back 5, 7 years ago, or even 10 years ago, 10 years of worth of working for a company.
We have time for two more questions. Mohammed?
So the last question, maybe I suppose it applies more to Charles because of the kind of business that you may have, but how do you choose the co-founders of your startup? How do you choose the people with whom you're going to work? It's on the friendliness?
It's like marriage. I mean, you just know, and if it doesn't work out, then it's really expensive. So.
Generally, these kind of things, these ideas that come from shared passions. We both have a shared vision and a shared idea.
learned from my father, never ever partner with anyone in any business you want to start. Do it by yourself. Not by yourself, but have the team to help you, but you are the sole owner of the company, period. So that's why I go back up about, you know, getting a backup job to help you support that. Having a co-founder in tech companies, it helps if you're looking to raise money. Sure, they're gonna ask you, you know, who's your technical team, who's this, who's that. I took that route where I don't want to, and it's forcing me not to bring partners or not to raise VC.
Danny had a question.
Well, about fear of failure, which is quite big. You know, I hate losing a tennis game. I really do. I get angry at myself.
Yeah.
If I put a year of my life into something with all my passion, all my effort, and it failed, how do you actually get back up? How do you sleep at night without? I mean, to me, it's really odd. I don't think I'd be able to do it. Maybe if I had no passion for something, but.
Well.
I mean, listen, yeah, you'll crash and burn. As I say, you'll feel very lonely. You'll feel really down. You'll feel at the lowest place you probably will ever feel. But also, you'll look at yourself, and that's when you really find out who you really are and what you're about. And then ultimately, a week or two afterwards, you know, that idea will be thinking the next thing. Okay, I can't stay like this forever. What's the next thing? And then you'll.
Yeah, I would say that, like, you know, pain isn't necessarily a bad thing. And if you just treat it as part of the process, you will go through depression, you will go through some really awful experiences, but I think this is where, like, having incredible friends and having somebody who cares about you and having family and being able to almost support a little bit of a support network around you, like, they'll get you back, for sure. They always will. And, like, you'll look back and you'll be like, wow, I learned a lot of stuff and it sucked, but I'm better for it. So, yeah, just fail faster now. Get it over with.
It's cheaper.
Much cheaper, yeah.
Olivier, you had a question?
Yeah, it was about your point that, like, we have seen, like, some entrepreneur here, and
I'm
they
sorry?
said that we have seen some entrepreneur here, and they told us that the first thing is to associate themselves, like, with others that complete their weakness. So when you say, like, the first thing that you learn is not to partner with another one, I was like, I'm a bit surprised because we have weakness, and all we have weakness, and to team up with other one is the way to face these weaknesses. So I was a bit surprised.
So surprised by having a partner, so that
To be
means
alone. I think it's really difficult to be on your own when you try to do stuff.
it is difficult, and when you have a partner, it does help because you would have that support system, you know, between each other. Okay, this is not working. Let's try this. Let's try that. That really works well when you don't have any money and you're just starting. But when things start getting a little complicated, see, I'm not saying when you start right away it's fine, but when it gets complicated and you start building a team and now you're going to decide who's going to make the decisions here, and that's where it gets complicated. That's why I say right from the beginning, if you can do it alone, just go for it by yourself. And no matter what company it is, I'm not just saying tech. Tech, well, in general, tech, they say, okay, well, tech, you need that just because you're having a technical co-founder or a business co-founder, a guy who can sell. But again, I would say if you can, go it alone. Like go it alone, like meaning not having partners. Have people to support you or to help you out along the way. But if you can build it by yourself, that would be great. By the time it gets really, really big, and it's fine, you can do it. I mean, you can manage.
Do you have an example of successful entrepreneur who have done this thing alone?
I mean, by the way, I'm running 2 companies right now by myself, and Sebastian is also working with us, helping us out with some of the programming. I'm the guy who I cannot even start having a roommate. I will tell you, since I was like in my 20s, living with a roommate was crazy. I couldn't handle it. So that goes back with the years. It's personality, and it's a type of personality you can't really So that's the type of person so I tell you, I prefer to and just because of the decision making afterwards in the future, and you know legally, and it's going to go through a lot of stuff. And I witnessed that with my father when he did that one time, and then I got this message from him, and he'll advise us not to do it. So I'm not.
Maybe the last question for Steph.
You told us that your biggest failure. So what about your biggest success in entrepreneurs?
I don't know. Like, I would say right now, like SourceGraph is probably something I've never cared about something more. You know, has it scaled to where we want it? No, but I think at this point in time, this is probably the best shot we've given.
Yeah, I think success is it's kind of a strange thing actually. It's entrepreneurs are a weird, rare bunch or a weird breed in that way of, you know, what is success. It's, you know, for me it's kind of already I believe that it is successful. It's successful to a degree because it's going, look at it, people are using it, wow, that's awesome. Now obviously sort of we're making a bit of money from it, which is, you know, is a success. So you know, I would say that, but it can always be more, it can always continue as well. You know, so it's not about sort of, you know, that it's all wow, you know, it's keeping it going and sort of, you know, it's lasted more than a month and it hasn't fallen over yet. That's wow, it's going, it's happening, you know, that's what it's about for me.
What about your greatest success?
That's a really relative question. It's a hard question to answer just because define it first. You know, I go back to define it. Where do you want to stop? It's never ending stop. It's just a process. Success is when you can live off of your business without relying on and not. You're always going to have money problems. It never ends. The bigger you grow, you're always going to have that problem. It's just a different problem. But then again, would you call that successful? So, but success, I think your question goes back to when is you really going to have a really viable business? That would be it.
Okay. Thank you. I think we.
I know the last one.
Sebastian,
We can chat
is it fine?
Yeah.
One question. Two.
Very quick.
Quick.
Just could you say that your goal is to keep creating startups and making them grow and then just sell them, or did you find something that you're passionate about and you just want to keep this one startup and make it grow and keep like working with it? Or is it like being an entrepreneur? Does it become a drag kind of?
It's
Want to keep doing it, or?
And I'll jump in on this one. I think that I'm the kind of person I will never ever retire. I will always have a project. I will always do something. So the idea is, you know, as you mentioned before, if someone came along and offered you a crazy $100 million for your business, this is my baby, I started this from nothing. That's like a big, you know, it would take a lot of money for me to part with it. However, if you did that, then it would be the next thing that you do. I need to find another project to get going. I wouldn't just want to, you know, sit on the beach drinking cocktails because, you know, I've been bored within a couple of days and I need something else to get going. So there'll always be a project going and something passionate, something to get excited about, something to get out of bed for. That's the main sure.
Yeah, you can start concurrent businesses at the same time. I'm running two right now. I'm thinking about starting a third one. The problem I run into is like I'm spreading myself too thin, so I kind of backed away and kept those two. You can't. It's the person. I think it's just you and what I enjoy is building stuff. You know, building businesses. That's what I enjoy the most. I don't really care what type it is as long as it's solve a problem.
So thank you all for your questions. What I propose is to offer the two shirts to the first two questions, those who had the guts to ask those questions. I think the main word of the debate, what stood out was learn and keep learning. So it was really inspiring. We looked forward to get inspired, and thank you to have offered that to us. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Good.
Thank you for coming. That was cool. That was really good. I didn't know you like biked across America, man. That's